Hey, this is Gary.
This is Mike.
And Daniel. We're not professionals. We're just three addicts sharing our experiences, strength, and hope regarding recovery.
Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to other addicts and to practice these principles in our lives.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the 12th Step Podcast. This is Mike.
And this is Gary.
And this is Daniel.
Good to be with you all tonight. Good to be back. Good to be back. We have an email. We have an email that I want to address tonight.
I love it when we get emails.
I do too.
Just keep them coming, guys.
Thank you, listeners, for reaching out. It's they're always very enlightening, and I appreciate. We always appreciate hearing from you, and it's really fun to know of not only your struggles but of your successes, and so your emails are fantastic. We just enjoy them. This is an email from Robert. Good afternoon. After listening to your podcast last night, I've decided to seek out a therapist and a 12-step program. I'm going to stop right there.
Good job.
Congratulations to you, Robert. That's if I will go to bed tonight knowing that Robert took a step as a result of listening to something that some wisdom that you all shared, and I think that's phenomenal.
Well, you too.
But I think that's great. That is no small thing.
No, it's not.
No, and do you know what it makes? It makes all of the time and effort and energy totally worth it.
Absolutely.
Totally worth
Well,
it.
and that's the first big step is admitting you have a problem and seeking help.
So, Robert, we just want to congratulate you on that big step, because that is not a simple thing. I remember walking into my very first meeting the first time and how scared I was. Mm-hmm. And I remember our common counselor holding, and of course his therapy sessions are always, so you have a therapy session, but then you have a group session as well. His therapy sessions always required, his participation always required a group meeting as well. Those were always tough for me. So the fact that somebody's decided to head down this path, I'm so excited.
It can be so overwhelming. It can initially.
It can be.
And I want to say one really critical part of that first part.
Sure.
I have decided.
Yep.
It wasn't my wife is asking me to do it, or I got caught, I'm going to do this. And maybe it still is a little bit of that, but it's I have decided.
Yep.
That right there, Robert, will see you through more of your path than anything, is to say, this is a commitment that I've made. I've decided to do this.
You hang on to that. Repeat that to yourself.
Absolutely.
I have decided.
Yep.
Yeah, I've decided to do this. So congratulations. Congratulations to you. I would add only one caveat to that. Please find a counselor. Please find a counselor that knows this particular topic. There are lots of counselors out there who believe they do, but find one that's CSAT trained who can help you with the idea and notion that you do have a problem and that you're struggling, and that they have the tools then to be able to help you. I think every counselor out there talks about sexual addiction with their people, but only a handful of them are trained specifically in that topic. So find...
Particularly where your email is going.
Yes, exactly. So I'm going to read on. This from Robert. So I've decided to seek out a therapist and a 12-step program, so I'm extremely new to this. How exciting. However, if alcoholics and drug addicts define being sober by not drinking or using mind-altering chemicals, how does a sex addict define sobriety without having to abstain from sex altogether? What a great question.
That is a fantastic question. And I have a thought I'd like to jump in.
Share it, please.
Okay, if alcoholics and drug addicts define being sober by not drinking or using mind-altering chemicals, I want to stop there.
Sure.
I don't think that strictly speaking is how they define sobriety. That's how they define clean time.
Right.
Sobriety is
Whole different world.
A whole different world. Change of lifestyle, change of attitude toward what it is. Because there's such a thing as a dry drunk.
Absolutely.
Well, not only that, not drinking. That's specifically not drinking alcohol. It's not, they can still drink Pepsi. They can still drink water.
Sure.
So, if you're married, sex is still going to be a component.
Sure.
It just needs to be in a healthy manner and fashion.
Which is where I think he's wanting to go. But so I just wanted to throw that out there, that there's more than just a alteration of behavior.
Correct.
Yes.
There is a good deal of we call it second order change, but changing of your thinking and ideas around what you're doing and understanding.
Yeah, I think
whys.
that not drinking or using mind-altering chemicals is that first order change.
Sure.
Yeah.
But he does bring up a really, really good question. So how do sex addicts define sobriety without having to abstain from sex altogether? Well, that's a fantastic question. And so I think we've got a couple ways we can go. We can certainly talk about first and second order changes.
Right.
We can also talk about how, I know that SA, if you're part of an SA program, they'll define it a certain way. If you're part of an SAA program, they'll define
They've
it a
got some
certain
new
way.
twists. Sure.
So let's go ahead and touch base on some of those things, and we'll just...
I think it's important that you find one that fits you.
Yes.
I do remember my very first experience of walking into an SA meeting and feeling very uncomfortable about how they defined what the universe of abstinence or what the big problem was for them. For them, the big issue had to do with lust. I think that it's the lust of the mind that caused and created problems in their universe. And it was an awkward trying to wrap my head around what it was they were talking about and how that played into my world and yada, yada, yada. So I ended up walking out of that. In fact, I remember walking out the door and tossing the booklet right in the garbage can almost immediately. Just it wasn't a fit. It was not a good fit for me
But
at
that
all.
model works for some people.
That does work for
and,
some.
And some people need that
That's right.
clear-cut, I want a black and white kind of a structure. Right. And if that works for you, then,
grab onto it.
Yeah.
Sure. I think that's right. But it wasn't me. So my point is that I think you have to find what it is that navigate, what it is that sort of navigates your universe and your world and what makes sense. And my next step obviously was then into the SAA program, and the parameters of which they define this particular topic are entirely different. And it seemed to fit a little bit better for me. Not only that, did it fit comfortable with our common counselor and the group settings that we were in with that sort of thing. And so it never at any point in time has everyone ever talked to me about complete abstinence, because that's just not even real. That's not even reality. I have enjoyed that. I have enjoyed some of the concepts that Shane has introduced multiple times, and that is that it's not a bad thing to lust after your wife. It's a matter of keeping it in some sort of confined circumstance in such a way that instead of my imagination running off to the pornography that I looked at before or whatever, but it's healthy to think sexual thoughts about
to desire her.
Desire her and to have those sorts of thoughts and feelings about your spouse.
Sure.
So those are some of the parameters I think that you can put it in.
I guess a lot of it. Now we're going off of Robert. We're going off a lot of. I don't know if you have a primary relationship. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how old you are, or what's going on in your world, or things like that. But you get to define in the SAA program. You get to define what healthy sexual behavior is.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that you just get to say everything's okay and go willy-nilly and do whatever you want. No, there is a very ordered way of doing this. This is why you have a counselor. This is why you have mentors. This is why you have people that you make yourself accountable to. You have to know your whys on where you put things. These are the behaviors that I want to abstain from completely.
Sure.
These are the behaviors that maybe I'm not quite sure of yet. That would be your middle circle kind of stuff. And then on the outside, these are the behaviors that I want to engage in.
Yeah.
This is what makes my world healthy and good and things like that. And so when you define that, you'll need to sit down with somebody, usually a mentor or counselor, both, and you're going to define that, and you're going to let them know what those definitions are. If this is the program that you're doing, if you are in a committed relationship, if you are married, or then your spouse definitely needs to be.
She has some input into that.
They need to have some input into that, because healthy boundaries and things like that. And then you get to. And and it's even okay to have some things that you're not sure of in the beginning.
Right.
I
think that's okay. Yeah. I think some of the things that I thought through, one of the most enlightening processes I went through was something that you, Gary, had brought up to me. What I realized is how what drove a lot of the thoughts about sex in my mind were external stresses that I was experiencing at the time. And that's really enlightening to understand. And I remember the comment that you had made to me was, you get to decide for yourself, Mike, what sex is and what sex isn't in your relationship. And there were lots of steps that I went through. One of the things that I found out as I Googled the idea, I just literally one day just hopped on Google and said, why do people have sex? A very large percentage of the response, I mean overwhelming response, large percentage was it releases stress. It relieves stress. And I thought to myself, I'm not interested in coming home at the end of a workday and saying to my wife, we have to have sex because I had a really rough day. There's nothing about that says this is a relationship kind of a thing that I'm interested in. And so I got a chance to look at that and define that, and had a chance to really evaluate, is that what sex means to me in my life? So when we start talking about the question that Robert's asking here, it's a process of evaluating what sex really means to me in my situation. I want to have a relationship with my wife such that sex is a natural outcropping or an outpouring of love as a result of us having some experience together or being able to spend time, quality time and connection together. I don't want it to be, hey, I just had a bad day at work, get over here.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so those are the things we get a chance to decide for ourselves and define for ourselves. That's what healthy sex, abstinence, and what healthy sex relationships and all of that stuff that he's talking about in my mind is about.
Yeah, I think so too.
So that was one of the first things I had a chance to review. The second thing that I had a chance to think through is that sex in a lot of cases is all this external influence. It can be pornography. It can be what I saw what I saw today at the mall. It's hot outside, and now I'm watching all this other stimuli that's influencing me. I wanted all of that to stop. So part of what he's getting at, in my mind anyway, is defining for myself, okay, I can't control all of that, but I can control how it interacts with me. And those are the things that I wanted to focus on. I'm not interested in, I don't think that's a healthy thing to say, hey, I just went to the mall and I saw some people who are wearing very nearly nothing, which means now I'm horny and I want to come home and have sex with my wife.
Yeah, exactly right.
Again, not a healthy sort of situation. No. So those are the things, again, that I think that question really posed to me was, Mike, what a great opportunity to define for yourself what these things really mean.
Yeah, and ask yourself the whys.
Right.
What do I want it to be? What role do I want it to play in my life?
Yes.
What do I want that to mean for me and my partner?
That's right.
You know what I mean?
And what does she say to me when she says no?
Yeah.
Right? And how comfortable is it in your relationship for your wife to simply say, I don't want sex tonight. We haven't done anything that I'm angry at you right now. And so when she says no, what is that telling me? And I don't have to attach anything to it.
Right.
And so those are the healthy abstinences of sex that we're talking about. I think that's what he's really getting at. Don't you think?
Yep. I mean, that's what it kind of sounds like. It sounds like...
Come back to this.
He doesn't come out and say it, but it sounds like, hey, I'm in a relationship. I'm trying to figure out how to make this work.
Yes.
Because I'm afraid that means that's off the table.
Right.
And how do we make this relationship work? We don't know for certain, but that's kind of at least the vibe I'm getting.
Right.
Yeah.
But an important point is that I don't think, even in a strictly abstinence kind of a program like SA, they're not telling you to abstain from sex altogether.
No, they're not.
That
would be completely unhealthy.
They just have a very clear defined definition of what a healthy relationship looks like, and that's not a bad place to start if you've got nothing else. Have a look at that and see what that looks like.
Absolutely.
But I don't think the intention is ever to. I mean, you're still alive. You're still a person. It's an integral part of
the mortal experience.
Experience.
Yeah, it just simply is.
And there are reasons for it beyond just reproduction. There are, it's how, if you engage in it in a healthy way, it can create a bond between you and your spouse that nothing else can.
Right. Right.
And I think that is also one of its primary purposes, is to create that kind of pair bonding.
Yes. And I try not to read too much into it. Sex is just sex in a lot of cases too. And I think it's nice to unpackage part of my upbringing was I packaged so much of this what it is and what it isn't kind of an idea. So when I was very famous in my early part of my marriage telling my wife that, well, if we're not having sex, that's telling me our relationship's not in a healthy place, right? That's the parameters, or the barometer I would check to see if our marriage is okay. No, it wasn't. Sex is sex.
Yeah.
And when I can unpack some of that stuff, I can be okay when she says, "Not tonight, honey. It's just not happening. I'm not interested and I'm not in the mood." Okay.
Or
That doesn't mean I hate you. Get out of my life. It just simply means not tonight.
Also, it doesn't have to be this magical moment every time.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. So those are, and you know, we're talking about these things in relation to the concept of he's saying of abstinence. It's not a matter of abstinence in the sense of no sex. What it is it's got to be clearly defined for yourself and what it means and what it doesn't mean in a healthy way.
And also what you're working toward.
Yes.
You know. Yeah, I love the story that Mike tells it, and and the reason I told him, I said, you're going to have to rethink everything you think you know what it is.
Yes.
You know, and that's because in my own experience, it's like, I've had some really, really wrong ideas.
Really
about
twisted idea about this topic.
And
yeah.
it's just turning out not to be what I thought it was.
Yes.
And quite honestly, what I'm discovering is way better than, you know.
Sure.
But anyway.
I think what, you know, to be quite honest with you, Robert, I'm guessing that at the end of the day, what you know about sex is what somebody told you.
Right.
Right? I'm guessing.
Or what society told you.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So maybe it was mom and dad who didn't necessarily have a good sexual relationship. Maybe it was the universe or the world of people that you know out there.
Or maybe it was
that they learned from it.
pornography.
Exactly, that they learned
Or
from an
movies and
inappropriate
TV
source.
shows.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, think about even what you see in the sex, you know, what sex looks like on the movie screen is not at all how it really is.
No.
And so consequently, we have these misconceptions. We have this misunderstood ideas about what it is and what it isn't. And sometimes we just simply need to unpack all of that and then start packing apart or start packing back the stuff that actually makes sense. And I think that's the universe for all of us. So it's not a matter of abstinence. It's a matter of finding what works in your particular circumstance, in your relationship, and making that make sense.
Right.
That's what I believe it is.
But it needs to be clearly defined, and you need to be accountable.
Yes. And I don't think you ought to tackle this alone. I think this is something that you're going to need some help on. This isn't something I would recommend. I mean, a good counselor can help you out with that. That's a good sponsor, a good mentor. All of those are good sources of people who can help out.
And where you've decided to start going to therapy and go to a 12-step program, those resources are going to be available to
Much
you.
more
And
available.
You most definitely need to take advantage of them.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't think it has to be all that defined to say today this is hardcore what it is, because a year from now it's going to be different than that.
Sure.
There's going to be some understanding that comes along the way of working through this in a healthy way, that you're going to find yourself saying, oh my word, what I thought I knew a year ago is not what I know now.
Do you know, find our episode of the podcast called The 3 Circles.
Yes. Great place to start.
You know, that's a powerful, powerful tool. And in that one, we talk a little bit about how to use an assessment tool called the 3 Circles, where you start defining this behavior.
Yes.
Fantastic place
Well, and
to
the
start.
nice thing about it too is, you know, as you get healthier and your wife feels safer, things may open up where things were off the table now they're on the table,
Right.
and you guys can discuss things. And it's like, okay, yeah, she may come to you and say, okay, I feel comfortable. We might be able to change some things, and you never know. And that could be something that you routinely do every year, like a check-in of like, okay, where are we at? How do we feel?
Right.
So it's not a permanent thing. I mean, that's the one thing I do like about the 3 Circles is not everything's permanent. It's not set in stone. You know, things can come in and out as we learn about things, because, you know, as we're digging deeper, we may find that, oh, wow, this is actually not a middle circle item. It is an inner circle. I need to move it in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, well, this isn't really that bad. It can go out to middle circle.
Right.
So we're constantly moving those around. But we're not doing it willy-nilly. We're still talking to
Yes.
our sponsor, our therapist, our significant other.
I think the kind of the rule of thumb is that you get to establish your circles, but you don't get to make any changes unless you're talking to somebody about
Correct.
it. You don't get to make changes by yourself. Another really good example of is, maybe right now you're not in a committed relationship. So what might be an inner circle or a behavior that you do not want to indulge in is something that's off the table until now I am in a committed relationship, and that makes things different. So
I think you have to look at it from a standpoint, I'm assuming, of course, based on the reading that's going on here, that he's experiencing addiction because he's seeking out a counselor. One of the things the books wants to talk about is that we need to understand that our mind's broken. We're in a state right now where we really can't trust our own judgment in a lot of ways. But over time, as we experience healthy activity and healthy behaviors, that we can mend ourselves, that we can fix ourselves, and we can work our way back to a healthy state of being. That's what we're looking to do. That's the process of healthy recovery. That it's not complete abstinence. It's a matter of understanding where we're at now and trying to make improvements in our life based on our fact that our mind is damaged, and we can work our way back to that spot. So having people in your life that can help you along with that is great, and rely on them. They're great resources. So very good topic. I really enjoyed the questions. Now, thanks again, Robert, for sending that in. That's a fantastic topic. I'd be interested in a follow-up from you at some point in time.
Yeah, let us know how you're doing.
Let us know how you're doing with that. That's every addict has to experience this thing that you're asking. And so it's a great question, and it's one that everybody needs to experience. And it'll, my process will be a little bit different than Gary's, a little different than Daniel's, but we all go through it. So, well, that's it. I think we've run out of time. So this is Mike saying, do the work necessary to find the peace that recovery can bring.
And this is Gary saying, do the next right thing.
And this is Daniel saying, find the humility in your recovery.
As a fellowship of recovering addicts, Sex Addicts Anonymous offers a message of hope to anyone who suffers from sex addiction. Check out saa-recovery.org.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like this episode, please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find us.